a lot of stuff because there was a forms release. So lots of things changed in our forms world, mostly minor things, but they all kind of require our attention. Before I get into those, does anyone have a transactional issue that they're working on and want to bring it up here? Parmita had an issue the other day that I'll cover. It had someone submitted a BMI form, which we don't see very often, so I'll cover that. So the weekly practice tip was about the revised forms, and the RPA. The main thing about the RPA was the adding of the bundling of the fair appraisal form. So here's we're in the ZipForms here, and we're in the RPA bundle, which is, starts with agency and moves on to fair housing, and then moves on to possible representation of more than one buyer and seller. If you aren't familiar with these forms, reach out to me separately, and because we've covered these in the past, but they're very important. That's why they're bundled together with the RPA. We can't write a contract without doing these forms. And then there's the wire fraud, then the RPA itself. And when we're done with the 16 pages of the RPA, I remember a 3-page contract, yeah. Anyway, there's the BIA, the Buyer's Investigation Addendum. And then this new form, the Fair Appraisal Act Addendum. So this is an addendum and not an advisory. It's becomes part of the contract. It's a contractual document. And it says that the appraisal of the property is required to be unbiased, objective, and not influenced by improper or illegal considerations. Both the buyer and the seller sign this form. So this was I think a federal law that requires parties to be advised of this, that the appraisals had to be unbiased and couldn't take into account illegal or protected things. So that's why that's now. And then there now, and now then we finish with the Privacy Act advisory. So remember, some of these are advisories. That one's an advisory, and some are addendums. That one's an advisory. So there's a difference between an addendum and an advisory. That's kind of where we're going with that. I'm not aware of any other particular changes in the RPA, in the RLA. They updated this to include the, again, this is the RLA Residential Listing Agreement Bundle now. So again, you start with agency, you have fair housing, you have the possible representation, you have the wire fraud, and then you had the listing agreement itself. And on the signature page here, they've copied what they had already done in the RPA, and that is allowed for entity signatures. So hold on, wait, went too far. Yeah, here we are. So seller signatures. So if the seller is an entity, then they can just check this box, authorized signer, and fill this out the way we do. So we used to do it with the entity sellers. Here we go. So we check this box that it's an entity seller, and we won't need the RCSD because the name of the legal signer is John Doe, and the name of the entity is down here. The name of the party goes there, the name of the entity goes here, and you can use the name of the party, the authorized party that's signing it, up in all of these other forms. That's the party we want. So they've just updated that to include that RCSD form, the form for entities and trusts and so forth, right in the agreement. Okay. Let's see. You go to this BMI form that, because it was something new to me, I haven't seen it. I think I might have seen it a while ago. But this was received by Parmita in a, okay, where's our full kind? Okay, get the full screen here. There we go. Sorry. So buyer material issues. So then it names the parties and as we always do, the property. And then this form's about the buyer obligation to disclose material issues. This would be if we had a buyer broker agreement, pretty much, that the buyer would notify us of material issues affecting their ability to purchase the property. And it would be where because it says with the broker has in writing, in accordance with the terms and conditions of the written or oral agreement between buyer and broker, buyer has agreed to notify broker in writing of any material issue to buyer, such as but not limited to buyer's request for information on or concerns regarding any particular area of interest and importance to buyer, material issues. So I think Bill pointed this form out in our legal update as being useful because the buyer may say they want a 3-bedroom home or a 4-bedroom home, and then they buy a 2-bedroom home, and then they get mad at you later for not following their directions and getting the 3-bedroom home. So you can fill out this form here with the material issues that the buyer has spelled out to you that they want when you're looking for them. You don't need a written agreement with it. It says they could have an oral agreement to help them find property and so forth. So that's an interesting form. We have let me see if I can find this here. I went and looked at our legal update. BMI form, okay. As you know, we affiliated, our broker risk management is our risk management firm, and they have given us access to tips, the weekly practice tips that I send you come from broker risk management. So, and they have a website, so you can log onto the website. We've covered that in the past. I won't cover it here again, but if you haven't got that information, just email me and I'll send you the login information. But this is was written in 2017, 5 years ago, when this form was developed. And it's our fiduciary duties after the Horiki case. Well, the Hiriki case was found to be a case against Coldwell Banker. The court held that both agents in the dual agent transaction owed fiduciary duty. And this is the language that's in the case that's important. As this case comes to us, it presents a single narrow question concerning the associate license's duties to the buyer in the transaction, whether the associate licensee owed the buyer a duty to learn and disclose all information materially affecting the value or desirability of the property, including the discrepancy between square footage and blah, blah, blah. And the Hiriki was the one where they had thought it was one size and it really turned out to be another size. And, what does it mean that a fiduciary must learn and disclose facts? So it goes on, this is language from the case again, the facts that a broker must learn and the advice and counsel required of the broker depend on the facts of each transaction, the knowledge and experience of the client, the questions asked by the client, the nature of the property, and the terms of sale. The broker must place himself or herself in the position of the client and consider the type of information required for the client to make a well-informed decision. So we've got to put ourselves in the shoes of the client and disclose everything that we feel is important that would affect, allow the client to make a well-informed decision. So what does this mean for buyer's agents? The issue of the buyer's agent's duty to learn is somewhat more difficult. This is because in addition to understanding the buyer's objectives, motivation, and timing for the purchase, there is the property itself. Each property is different as to its surrounding area, which dozens, if not hundreds of factors. Regarding learning about what the buyer is looking for, CIR has an excellent form for that purpose, the Buyer Material Issues Form, the BMI. That's the one we were just looking at. So if you have this BMI and you filled it out with your buyer, it's not only helpful to you in assessing what the buyer is looking for, because that's what it's designed to do, but it helps us legally if the buyer later on says, well, you didn't disclose this, and you said, well, you didn't tell us it was a material fact. That's what we can follow, because we've asked them to tell us what the material issues are. If they don't include that as a material issue, as something, and then they complain about it later, we can point out that, well, you didn't tell us that was a material issue to you. It's not material to everybody, and there are things that might be material to one person and not to another. So that's why we use that BMI form. Pull it up, look it over, and if you're working with a buyer, particularly if you're a new agent, get in the habit of using it and filling it out and see how that goes. How does the buyer respond to you're filling it out? They think it's a pain, then you try to work with it. But it's a good and useful form that we're just starting to see more of. Okay. Any questions on that? And do go in and look at those practice tips when they come up. I often refer to the broker risk management website when something comes up. Heather has loaded up some BHAG learning opportunities on the Google Calendar. So
yeah, I'll talk about it later. I just put it in there because I had the link.
Okay, good deal. So anyway, there's other forms that were changed. Now, because of my training forms, I don't have templates, and Heather's going to cover templates today. And all these changes to these forms that are in my sample training files, I have to update. So let's see. Find this here. I'm just going to pull up the ZipForms again. So screen, there we go. So here's that buyer material issue. So now, so this morning, in preparation for this training, I had to eliminate the old RPA form, which was dated just last December. And I uploaded this new one, which no, it says, oh, that's the AD revised. Okay. Yeah, so our contract itself is very good at the top of it, revised 622. So if you don't have templates, and Heather's going to explain now, if you do have templates, it's good because they'll automatically update the forms that are changed in your templates. That's so that way you can be sure you're using the most recent form. If you are like me and do these one at a time, or in I keep this sample training folder, I'm going to have to go in and change a whole bunch of little forms here. The RRR form was changed. The RR form was changed. The COP form was changed. So I'm going to have to go in and do some cleanup and make sure I have the current forms for training purposes anyway. So that's just a caveat. And Heather, it's a good lead into Heather because she's going to tell you how to avoid all that in the future by creating templates, and then the templates will automatically update themselves, or the forms will. So I'm going to make you a co-host here, Heather, and I'm going to let you carry on. How about that? Unless anybody's got a question.
Okay.
No questions.
No questions. All right. Okay,
All right.
Great. Thanks, Gary.
Yep.
Yeah, so I always want to help everyone make things as easy and quick and less hassle as possible. So a great thing to spend a few minutes on in your CAR ZipForms account is setting up templates so that you don't have to recreate every time you have a transaction. You don't have to recreate and find the forms and add them in, but they'll already be in every transaction for you. So let me pull up, make sure I've got the right thing. Just one second. Let me get. There we go. Here we go. It's still spinning. Hopefully I have good internet today. It is still spinning, but we should have it here any moment. Now, when you start a new transaction, I'm going to pop up as soon as it stops spinning. I'll pop up to transactions. When you create a new transaction, so you're either going to write an offer for you're either going to write an offer for a buyer or you're going to do a new listing, then you want to the easiest way to do it is to set up a transaction. You can go and just access a form individually, but setting up a transaction really makes it nice and easy. You can add a template with all the forms you need. You can put in all the buyer and seller and all the information, and then it automatically will populate every form you add to the transaction. So it really does make things easier for you. So I'm just going to quickly show you in transactions when you set up a new transaction. So here I just clicked over to transactions. I click on new. Let's say I'm going to be writing an offer because we're all going to write, 5 offers this week, right? When you do that, right here at the bottom, it says select template, not at the very bottom, but halfway down. It says select template. Then if you click on that, then it gives you all the templates you have. And by adding one of these, it will add all of those documents into your transaction for you. Now, I did buyer, and if I go ahead and click on residential, it's going to say it automatically is going to add this purchase offer packet template to my transaction. I set that up so every time I open up a new buyer transaction, new offer transaction, it's automatically going to apply this purchase offer packet. So that's really handy. You can also do templates that don't get automatically applied, and then you apply those later if you want. So like I'll do that for a listing. I have a template that's all of the seller disclosures. So I will add that in later when I'm ready to use them instead of having it be all at the beginning. But however you want to manage your, your systems is great. A little sidebar here, if you're not using it, this little MLS Connect is really great if you use this when you're writing an offer. I'll open that up and show you. You obviously have to have your MLS info, but if you put in there the MLS listing ID, have it include the property photo, and then you click find, once it will bring over all of the information for that listing and automatically populate all your documents. So you don't have to go and look up the APN number. You don't have to look up the listing agent's company or any of that stuff. It automatically goes in there. So I highly recommend when you set up that new transaction, you do use this MLS Connect. So I've just run across a few people that aren't using it lately. So I wanted to point that out today too. Once you, so that's how you add it to a transaction. Before that though, you want to go in and actually set up the templates. So I'm going to click on templates here. You can see I have a whole bunch of templates already created, but I'll walk you through how to create those. It makes things so much easier. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to show you one more thing before that. I'm going to go back over to transactions. I'm going to just open this sample transaction. I'm going to show you how to put checklists into your template. And I want to show you right now where those checklists show up. So when you're in a transaction and if you have added a checklist to your transaction or your template, right over here in required tasks, that's where those checklists will show up. So in your template, you can say 3 days after contract that the buyer needs to, submit their deposit. You can have that pop up here on your required tasks. So it reminds you to check in with your buyer. Hey, have you, sent out your, have you made your deposit? Or you could set it up that 1 day after contract that it reminds you to remind them, right? Maybe send an email or whatever. So you can have a nice checklist in there so that you are less likely to forget all those important steps. So I'll show you how to do that as well. I just wanted to show you where you see it in the transaction. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to that, and I'm going to go back to templates. All right, so now you come over into templates. When you're going to create a new template, you just click on, shocking, you're going to click on new. It will ask you what type of template you want to create. Is it going to be for a listing or a purchase or offer or a lease? Let's go ahead and say it's going to be for a purchase or offer. You want to name it something that makes sense for you, right? So I have the one I use all the time. I think I already forget what it was called. Buyer offer packet, something so you know that it's going to be a buyer. I also have made templates. I've taken those original templates and added things like manufactured home and bare land so that I have those all ready to add as well. So that's, if it's just a regular straight residential, you might name it something like that. Residential offer, whatever. I'm going to put samples so I know this is not a real one. You have to click on if it's residential, what it is. Now it looks like, oh no, I can't do this. We keep checking into that. It would be so nice if I could just make all the templates for you, but they charge a crazy amount for that. So now right here is where you can decide if that template is going to be automatically applied when you open a transaction. So when you open up that new offer buyer transaction, do you want it to be automatically applied? The default is do not automatically apply it. If you want it to automatically apply, then you can have it either apply to all purchase transactions or all transactions. So for a buyer packet, I would have it automatically apply to your purchase transaction. And okay, there we go. I'm working on 2 different screens here. The great thing is Gary already mentioned about once you set up a template, all the forms you're going to put into the template every single time they update those, it will automatically put the new forms in there for you. So you won't ever have to go back and change the forms and go, delete RPA from 2017, add RPA from 2022. You don't have to do that. It will automatically happen for you. So that is really, really helpful. Then you're using the most current up-to-date forms, right? How crazy is it when you get you get an offer from someone and it's, on some 20-year-old form. It's like, oh, I don't think that's great. That's not good. Okay. So now we are in the a typical purchase template. There's different things you can add parties to it. So if you always, maybe you always co-list with someone, or you have another agent working with you, or a specific escrow officer, you can add those things. Here's where you add the checklists I was talking about. And then right now we're on documents. And that's the main thing you're going to do, is add documents in here. It's super simple to do so. You just click on add doc. You can either browse for a document on your desktop. You can get it from any of these places, or sorry, I forgot what I was doing there. Right over here on the right-hand side is all forms. So add doc is when it's something that's not a CAR form. So like in a listing, I often will put, I have in my listing agreement that authorization to exclude from Barris. I add that into my template right here. So that's what you can do. Anything outside of the CAR forms. For any CAR forms, you just come over to all forms like a normal transaction, right? And then you just add everything you want. I always suggest using a cover sheet. Here, we're going to add the residential purchase agreement. You see, just scroll down and click and add whatever you want to it that you always use in an offer. So I'm going to put in market conditions advisory. If there is anything you always use, or very often use, you want to add that here. Once you've added everything you need, just a reminder, this is the CAR library. You can also access the North Bay Association library here. And I'm going to take off market, and there's, that's where you access the Sonoma County disclosure and disclaimer. So if you want to add that into one of your templates, it's just like adding it into a transaction. Go back to CAR.
That's a good place to, that template's a good one to add that BMI form to.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Let's add that. I've never used that. I'm super excited about that, because there's definitely been times that a buyer that I need, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So I added the BMI, anything else that you want to add that you normally use. Again, like with a listing agreement, maybe you put all of your disclosures, all of the seller disclosures in here, or at least the TDS and the SPQ, so that you remember, if you like to print that up with the listing agreement when you go sign the listing, then it's right there for you. If you have any documents, again, that you want to add, you just click add doc, and then you can go and browse on your desktop for a document. Let's see, I don't know what I would add to here right now. For a buyer, there's not a whole lot. I'm just going to pretend and add something to it so you can see what it looks like. It's great to rename it. Like, obviously that's a weird name, right? So I might say it's the buyer or something. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Buyer sample form. All right. Then once you put that in, it is right here on the right-hand side. Oh, that's funny. It didn't change the name. So you can also add here, and I really suggest doing this as well. You can, under add document, you can add a placeholder. So this is really nice. I add a placeholder for things like pre-approval letter. And it reminds me to, you can see how it looks, pre-approval letter. It reminds me that I need to ask for a pre-approval letter. You could also add the proof of funds. You can see what I've done in the past, obviously here. There you go. How about a great one there? Because this is the one I always forget, is the disclosure, SCLO, disclosure.io cover letter, right? Signed. That's something, oops, I don't know why there's a 0 there, but anyways. So anything that you later want to get, you can put that in as a placeholder, and it's just really nice. It helps you remember. Now you'll notice on all of these, you can set a due date. Now, this would be a really great thing to do. Say you were signing a listing and then you wanted, 5 days later or whenever you wanted to then send all the disclosures to your client. What you can do is any of these, say, I'm going to go on to buyer material issues. You can set a due date that's relative to a variety of different things that happen. So often I do like, okay, 5 days after, date of contract. So once I write the listing agreement, if that was this type of template, that I'm saying, or maybe after I write this contract, this purchase agreement, then 5 days after, I want it to tell me that my BMI is due, right? So if there's something like that you want to be reminded, you can set that up in here. And then when you open that transaction and add that template, it's all going to be there. It's going to show up on that tasks list on the left-hand side. Let me look at my notes. Is there anything else? Oh, if you want to reorganize these, all you do, so as you add it and you're like, well, this isn't the order I normally want to do this. I want to see that maybe the pre-approval letter earlier or the disclosure IO packet earlier. You just click here on organize, and then you can just grab anything you want and move it. You can just pick it up and move it to wherever you want it to be in your template. Now, another super helpful thing that you can do in your template is you can start filling out all of these forms, anything that you always regularly do. So for instance, oops, I need to hit done organizing. Sorry, I forgot about that. So you can go and you can click on open up the form, and then any of the information. So I just opened up the cover sheet. So any of the information here that is regular, right? So where's my buyer's broker? Here we go. So in this case, I'm the buyer's broker. So I'm going to fill all this information out so that it's already in there for every document that's in that transaction that template's been added to. So you can fill all this out as much as you want, your name, your info, and then you never have to do it again. Of course, check that when you pull up a document, double check everything, because you never know if something's not going to populate correctly. But most, I would say 95% of things do. So that's really handy. And then once you've filled that out, now your template includes all that information. So when you go to open up that transaction and you add the template, it's already going to be in there. All right, then any questions so far? How's everybody doing? Does that make sense? Everybody's so quiet. All right, cool. I got at least some acknowledgement. Great. Okay, so then the other thing that it's handy to do is this checklist here. You can click on that. It's going to take it a minute. You can add placeholders here as well if there's something you want to have come up. You can see I added that due date on the BMI. It's already showing up in my checklist, but you can add other checklists or more information. So let's see. I haven't done this in a while, so give me a second here. Document transaction checklist. Where is created? Oh, there it is. Sorry, guys. Top left, new checklist. So I want to add in buyer open escrow, say. All right, so I'm going to make a new checklist here. It's going to be here, and then I just create tasks that I want to include. Create a task, buyer initial deposit. I'm going to put that. So Later, you can go and change these to fixed, but obviously you don't want to do that now, because then you're saying for every transaction on June 24th, something's going to be due. That doesn't make any sense. You can have no due date and just have it show up as an item that needs to be done, or you can do it relative. And relative is that, 3 days after the contract. Let's see, offer acceptance date, right? And then it's going to pop up there. You can even assign this task to a particular person. So is it something that I always handle, or if you work with another agent, or isn't TC on here? I guess TC is not on here. That's weird. Anywho, so you can assign it to someone. I always just have it be popping up for me, and then I make sure the other people that are supposed to be doing it are doing it, right? And you can set it up here to notify that responsible person, as long as you have a valid email in there for them. Obviously, that's saying it's missing, so I'm going to take that off. But that's something. How do you add the email? I haven't done this in a while. Anywho, well, I'm going to just have it be unassigned so it works. It must be that in the, I don't know why it's not asking me to do it here, but in the in your address book, you have to have all those people. If you're going to assign anyone, they have to have an email address in there, and then it would automatically send them a notification if you turn that on. Okay, once you've done it, always make sure you check save on the bottom, otherwise it never happened. And there it is in my open escrow checklist. Why didn't it give me a new task? I don't know why it didn't come up. Must be something I didn't do. That's weird. Let's say none. I'm going to try it again. I don't know why it didn't work. There it is. That time it worked when I did sample. So anyways, maybe it's because the offer hasn't been accepted yet. The previous one I put offer acceptance date, so it doesn't show up until, it won't show up in your normal checklist, on a transaction until it's due. So one thing to think of is you might have it actually alert you a day or two before it's actually due. So you're not like, oh no, it's due, it's almost 5 and it's due today, but you actually have it alert you a day or so ahead of time. Let's see. I think that is everything I have on making templates. Any questions? Oh, if you already have some templates and you're like, well, I never really finished this, you can so I'm back on my main templates page. You can go in and click on that template, and then you can make all those same changes that I just talked about, right? You can organize them, you can remove them, add new documents, whatever. So you can update your templates anytime very easily.
Heather, why don't you visit one of your actual templates and let's see that the forms have actually updated.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. All right, here's my purchase offer template. Here's my RPA.
No, yep, it's 622, so it's all good. Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Yep. They promised me that would happen. I asked a bunch of times. I'm like, wait, are you sure? I didn't really believe it either. So
that's great.
Yeah. All right. Any questions? Would you guys, I've been thinking about like having a little powwow at one of the offices where people could come in and sit down with their computers and actually make these templates. Because I know sometimes we hear this stuff and then we need to implement it, right? You need to block out 20 minutes. I mean, it doesn't take long, but block out 20 minutes in your calendar that you're going to go in and actually create. I mean, you could do completely on 2 templates. You could do a buyer packet and a listing packet, right? And it would make your life so much easier, and you could do it all in 20 to 30 minutes. So I really encourage you to do that. Implement, because otherwise we forget and it doesn't happen, right?
Kathleen asked in the chat, how do you use the template for a new transaction once you have it. So,
Yep. So here you go. I'm going to open a new transaction right up on the top here. Transaction, nothing's happening. I was so happy it was letting me switch screens, and now it's not doing anything. There you go. Just give it a second here. You go into transactions, and then you click here on new, Kathleen. I'm going to say I'll show you new listing. And then right here under templates, you just add in any template you want. Here is personal new listing. So now when I create that transaction, that template's already going to be on there. The other way is you have it automatically apply, but you have to create a transaction. So I know a lot of agents, sometimes they just go right into forms and they don't make a transaction, but creating that transaction is awesome, because then all your forms, everything you need is in one place, and you can add the template to that, but you have to make a transaction.
great. Good.
Any other questions? I have one other quick thing I'd like to show you guys. If any other questions? No, nothing in the chat. I haven't even seen the chat. Is it we all
Heather?
good? Yeah.
I was just gonna say, that would be great if we could come in the office and create those templates if you want to set that up as a future training, I would love that.
Okay. I'm happy to do that, because I know sometimes, it's nice to just sit down and work on it together, but really, I know you guys can all do this in about 20 minutes. So I challenge you, because I'm going on vacation next week. So I'll tell you what, I challenge you next week, by the end of next week, everyone create your templates. If you don't, let me know and I will set up a workshop on it. How's that sound?
Okay.
You're all okay. I'm happy to do it though. Really, I am. So, okay. All
You
right.
had one more thing you said.
Oh, yes. So I have created, so I put in the chat, I have created a Google Calendar that I've shared with everyone, and I'm going to be doing an Outlook calendar that you can add to your own personal calendar that shows all of the upcoming trainings. So it's going to have in there the link to this contract training, so you can, if for some reason you can't find Gary's email, and it's going to have everything. So let me just show you that really quick. I haven't created the Outlook one. We're still working on getting me access to be able to share a calendar on there. I don't know, technology, right? Let me find it here. So on Google Calendar, I think I have not shared, huh? That would be helpful. How many of you guys use Google Calendar as your normal calendar? Anybody?
Nope.
No? Is it Outlook?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll do Outlook next time. I love Google Calendar. I'm a Google gal, I guess. But here's Google Calendar. The great thing about Google Calendar is you can highlight and turn off different calendars along the edge. So here I have our BHG WCG learning calendar. And once you highlight it, you'll see over here on the right-hand side, here is next week's contract training. If you click on that, it has right in there the Zoom link. And so this is going to be really handy. You can just have it. You can hide it when you don't need it, when you're not using it. And then you can open it up anytime you want to take a look at it. So I sent everyone a link by email, and then I also did just put it in the chat. It's just going to be a nice way for us to, for you guys to quickly and easily be reminded when there's trainings coming up. And I will get one done on Outlook as soon as I can, Joe.
Yeah, since we're our background email server is a Microsoft Alpha, or what do we call it?
Yes.
That uses Outlook, so that it would be good to have an Outlook too.
Yeah, we're working on it. For some reason,
okay.
I have access to everything but sharing a calendar.
Okay.
So it's in the works.
All right. Sandra suggested she'd like the in-person training too.
Okay,
Yeah, so
okay. I can do a couple weeks. I can do that.
yeah, the Apple Calendar, I think, will integrate with the Google Calendar. Kathleen, give it a try.
Mm.
Well, I've got one more thing. I sent out yesterday with the notice about this training and the link, a link to the 1 hour forms training from CAR on the fire hazard disclosure statement and the DSDT. It has been recommended by several folks, including our broker risk management group, that we watch that. So I'll send it out again with this recording. So when you see this reminder from me to do the 1 hour FHDS and DSTD training, carve out an hour and do that, because it'll be worth your time understanding those forms. Okay, I think that's what I've got for today. And thank you, Heather, for your instructive parts there. And any other questions before we head off to the weekend? Yes.
This is not a contract question, but I have wondering if anybody has any experience with this or any knowledge. I have a client who there is basically a live workspace. So a loft apartment above a commercial building, and she only wants to buy the loft apartment, and the seller's open to that. Can that be divided? I mean, it's not like where there's two buildings and we could split the lot, but it's actually on. Anybody have any idea? I have called a couple of attorneys, so trying to find a solution, but I just thought I'd put it out there.
Describe the property one more time.
So it's one building, and the bottom is a commercial. It's a wine tasting, and the top, you can't see my hands, but the top of it is a loft apartment. So she would like, and they want to sell to her just basically like a condo up there with the, and then he would retain ownership of the.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, it's going to require some legal work.
Yeah.
Right now, it's a legally defined property, which includes both. So it's like you would have to do a subdivision almost to separate them out, and that may not be allowed by the CC&Rs of the whole condo. So, yeah, that's going to require some legal work to check that out.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, one thing they could do, I don't know, just to being flexible, is good to give them a long-term lease on that space or something like that.
Yeah, that's actually what she first was doing, because she would buy the whole thing, but there's a tenant in there who's only on month to month, but they are paying below market, and she's like, they would either need to pay above market. Well, she would prefer, right? They're either paying market rate on a longer term lease. So then she doesn't have the risk of no tenant, right? And starting off with nothing, just to make it more secure. So yeah, we're trying to be creative and find a way, because everybody wants to make it happen. So thanks,
yeah, Curtis, Curtis is suggesting a life estate, but again, Curtis, the properties are combined. It's a live work. So there's a commercial space and a living space that are combined in one legal entity. So she just wants to buy the living space. So I don't know that a life estate would work in that case. Let's see. Yeah, there was one other question we had this week, and I'll just pull this up real quick. We have an agent who's representing a seller on a property, and it's a quick close. It was only a 10-day escrow or something, and there were no contingencies, but it is a mobile home park, so it required approval of the park. So that's taking longer than the 10 days. And in the meantime, the seller had moved out, And there's a little grassy plot in front of the mobile home that is with lack of care and the heat, the grass is dying. So the buyer went by and says, I'm not, I'm not going to close on the transaction because the lawn is dying. You need to get the lawn kind of back in shape. So the question was, can they cancel or delay the closing based on that fact? Well, 7B in the 7B1 in the RPA says that the property shall be delivered as is in its present physical condition as of the date of acceptance. The property, including pool, spa, landscaping, and grounds, to be maintained in substantially the same condition as on the date of acceptance. Well, that we don't have that, so the seller's gone away and the grounds, the landscaping is dying. So they might finagle that into a right to cancel. That would be a leverage point if that's what the buyer wanted to do, because it's a contractual item here. As a practical matter, and we're here to help people with transitions, right? So we want to be problem solvers, and we've got a problem here. Well, our agent went to the neighbor and said, can you water the lawn until they close on it? So the neighbor, being a friendly neighbor, said, sure, I'll go out there and water it once a day or whatever. So for the time being, we got the neighbor taking care of the lawn and everything should be okay. So find a practical solution whenever you can. Who was it? It was saying something the other day, with all these new forms that are being issued, can they just issue a common sense form, that everybody will use common sense? That would be nice. All right, y'all. That's it for now. We'll be around next Friday, so we'll plan on a class then, or a training, and have a great weekend ahead. Stay cool. It's hot out there. See you, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Have a good week.